Welcome to MapleWoodian.com podcast. We have on the phone Elizabeth Aaron. How are you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm good. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate your time. Things are busy as always. Columbia, of course, you are principal of Columbia High School with now in your beginning of your third year. Time flies.
It does.
I want to ask you, so now you have 2 years under your belt. How are things after being there? You were there, of course, a year before that as an assistant principal.
Right.
And now you are 2 years in the top job. How is it now that you've kind of gotten the feel of things and you're more maybe more comfortable in the leadership role?
I think we're feeling that we're kind of settling in nicely. I would say as both a leadership team in the building, I have 3 absolutely fantastic assistant principals. You know, a maxim of hiring, I think, has always been hire people smarter than yourself and work well with them. And I certainly have 3 really smart and experienced assistant principals. I think we, and I've said this often, are certainly very different people in terms of our backgrounds and experiences, how we came maybe to education and the path we've taken in it. But we certainly, I think, are clearly and strongly all on the same page with how we feel about impacting students and working with families, making sure we are supporting teachers and certainly getting out of their way so that they can do a good job with our students. One of the things I think it's important for an admin team to do is their best to kind of get the obstacles out of teachers' ways, because they're the ones who are most directly impacting students every day, all day long in the classroom. So I think we've made some real progress on those fronts, and I think we're settling in now that Dr. Ramos has been here a year and our district is taking on some real hard work with strategic planning. There's a lot of good stuff happening and that will continue to happen.
What are how are the backgrounds different? Tell us about that. Now, you are obviously from Summit, and you are from New Jersey. And
yep. So
how about the others, the assistants? That's interesting.
We are. We've all been in New Jersey for quite a long time. Mr. Ezell and I originate in New Jersey. Mr. Woolard and Ms. Hewitt. Ms. Hewitt was born and raised in nearby public schools, I believe. Mr. Woolard, I think, has his roots in Virginia.
Okay.
We all have been in education for quite some time. Ms. Hewitt and I started within, I think, about a year of each other. She started with Teach for America in the New Orleans public schools in, I think, around 1991 or so. And she has, on all of us having taught almost every grade level that there is, she has a tremendous amount of K-8 experience, which I think is one of the really strong things she brings to our leadership team. Mr. Woolard is tremendously skilled and was a technology teacher and media specialist supervisor. He's tremendously knowledgeable about the way we can use the Federal Perkins Grant in career and tech education to broaden our students' exposure and skills in those areas. He deftly manages our online learning components at Columbia. Mr. Ezell spent about 10 years in the United States Army jumping out of airplanes before entering the teaching field, and he has an undergraduate background in philosophy, which makes him a pretty interesting person to talk to sometimes.
Oh, yes.
I have a pretty standard path toward teaching in that I began teaching in New Jersey public schools right out of college. We all have advanced degrees in either our subject area and or education and educational leadership. And we've all taught in kind of a range and a diversity of public schools. So I think we bring all a little bit of everything to all of the diversity that we have at Columbia. And I think it's one of the reasons we work well together.
Excellent. I'll bring one little challenge just to get out of the way is you have fewer teachers this year. There were some cuts, and the guidance department cut back. But as people like all of us know when we get your emails and notices that the challenge is being met, how has that changed things, and how is it being handled?
Well, I think the pretty straightforward and obvious answer is that anytime you lose anything in public education, whether it be money or people, it puts stresses and pressures on the services that you deliver and the supports that you can provide for your students. Losing 9 teachers is a huge hit for a high school. If you do the simple math on teachers teaching 5 classes each, being 9 teachers down means you're anywhere from 40 to 45 fewer sections being offered. So that puts pressure on your core content teaching versus your electives offerings. We obviously need to prioritize making sure all of our students have their graduation requirements fulfilled and that they're all on track for graduation in a timely fashion. Certainly, the loss of a guidance counselor has put added pressures on those other counselors to absorb a few more students to their caseload, which is a challenge for them and the department. So we look to kind of operationalize and develop processes and procedures, whether it be how you sign into guidance or get a pass for a meeting to your counselor, or how we staff academic labs or study halls to make sure that students feel the pressure of those cuts the least, but that puts a lot of extra responsibility on those of us running the show. And we're working with the superintendent's office and the assistant superintendent in curriculum and in administration to really make sure that students don't feel those pressures. But it's difficult to do.
But obviously the basics are being met. You're generally providing what you have in the past, it sounds like. I mean, there's no major areas of elimination, or are there?
I think it's safe and honest to say that we've remarkably and deftly managed to not kind of cut or eliminate anything at this point. We all know that lots of districts have conversations about cutting arts or cutting music or cutting drama, things that many places, and certainly in American ed in the last 20 years, have begun to think, or at least have some people think, that those are, kind of extras that you can eliminate. Our district certainly does not believe that. We don't believe that. We're looking at very creative ways to add supports and services and new courses, whether it be a pilot of, AP Computer Science this year, or looking at how we're developing math supports to go along with students in algebra and geometry who may need extra support in those classes throughout the school day, rather than requiring or needing students to take it upon themselves to come extra to get help in a subject they may be struggling with. There was a lot of heavy lifting over the summer, both before Dr. Giordano departed the district, and some supervisors left or retired, and we onboarded some new people. It was a busy summer.
As you would expect. But also, you mentioned the arts and other programs. I think a lot of people who've been in Columbia for a while, and again, full disclosure, my daughter's now a sophomore there and loves it, and I think we get to see more, having been parents for a while with a child at Columbia, all the offerings that the district has, that the school has. What do you think, what would you tell people that maybe they don't know about all the offerings and a lot of the extracurricular arts, whether it's music, arts, concerts, even things like the technical programs, the student TV productions, and all of it. If someone just hears about Columbia and doesn't know what goes on in those areas, what would you say?
Gosh, I would certainly say to...
it's a broad question, I know.
It sure is, but I think it speaks to the strength of our public schools in South Orange, Maplewood, and the commitment we have to making sure that we're providing opportunities and resources for all of our students, whatever their needs and interests may be, whether that is through a diversity of club and extracurricular activity offerings that I think is kind of propelled and driven by our student interests in the community, whether that be, the stage crew or a group like Power, which is about really women's advocacy and rights for all, or, the chess club, or film and animation. We are committed to making sure kids have those opportunities after school. We have teachers give tremendous amounts of their own time to do those kinds of things. And then we also believe that what some people might view as quote-unquote extras are things that we think all students should have access to. So, the fact that we have an in-house art gallery that hosts, rotating exhibitions, or that we want all students to take multiple years of art and or music, to be exposed to the Hall of Fame, to be exposed to the opportunity to, have a voice on a student council or in a club that matters to them, is a huge part of who we are, in addition to, I think, what are about the strongest academic offerings any high school could offer.
Yes, and of course was it the Columbia Cougar News?
Morning news,
reports,
yep.
which anyone, and I look at them online, anyone can go online and look them up and watch, and it's a great reminder of how the students can do news coverage.
They can, and we, our Columbia Cable News, our joke is that kids say, "What's cable news?" Because, of course, those of us who are old enough remember when cable TV was new,
Yes.
and now, of course, we know that our students and their families access and receive the news in lots of different ways. So one of the adjustments that came out of our new Bell schedule this year is a shortened daily announcement period, but we are having our morning news crew rotate in once a week, a 5 to 8 minute weekly week in review broadcast, which they just really started 2 weeks ago. So that's kind of an opportunity for us to kind of respond to our changing world while holding on to some of our programs and course offerings that we know are strong, that engage lots of students. And one of the things they worked on was wanting to make sure that all of the students in those morning TV production classes, even some of the newest ninth graders who are just getting started in that area, had an opportunity to participate in some way, even if it was just, behind the scenes holding a camera as they put those first couple broadcasts together. And we'll make sure those also go out to the community online.
So they're now a weekly program.
Currently, they're a weekly program, and that's really something I have to say that to provide more detail would be disingenuous, because I think the team of students and their teachers are really working on it this year. And so that's an example, I think, of where a schedule that we made to serve more students, first and foremost kind of academically with our Bell schedule, has opened up an opportunity for them to think about delivering things differently. And as the TV production teacher said, even we were starting to get bored with the morning announcements. So students really taking the lead and thinking about what else they might be doing is exciting this year.
Yeah, and if you watch them, as I've watched, it is more of an in-depth program. There's a lot more time to do more when it's once a week. So I think, that's definitely something that
and we're definitely looking forward to seeing what they come up with this year.
Excellent. Now, what's different from last year otherwise? Now, obviously, you have a different Bell schedule this year. You have school starts later for some, but earlier for others, because you're...
No, now it starts at the same time for everyone. Really,
right.
Everyone.
But the early class that was 7:30 is no longer early.
Correct. So everyone
early.
starts the day at 7:45 Bell with an entry so that everyone can start period 1 at 7:55. That was just a big adjustment for students, seeing so many people at the front entry at the same time.
Yes.
Of course, we have everyone enter through one door, and that's a real just safety and school management approach, which is very common among high schools, so that we can, as administrators, kind of supervise our entry and make sure kids are coming in ready to go to start the day. And so that's been a change that I think students are largely used to.
But now there are more periods, so there are more opportunities.
So everyone has, many students did take a 1 through 9 class day, but many students did a 1 through 8 or 2 through 9. And now one of the reasons or ways we were able to do that is, as I'm sure you know, many more students, really almost all of our students, we aimed to give them a study hall in school this year. And that's because we really, if we want to move achievement and performance for all students, we have to have access to those students. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the worst ways to do that is ask the students who are most struggling to kind of come back to school or stay around extra to get the help that you need. We want to make sure we're providing services to students who need them during the day when we have them. It's not hard to get highly motivated, engaged students to want to kind of spend more time at school. But some of our most struggling or disaffected or disengaged learners, we need them during the day. And there's lots of other reasons and ways for students to use study hall effectively. And I think it will have, I think we're already seeing it have an impact on students having a little bit more time during the day to see their counselor if they need to. We can refer them to counseling or other supports. They can be using their study hall time to work on college essays or PSAT practice or just get some homework done. And that can really alleviate some of the pressures and anxiety and stressors that we see every day on our students. So we really want to work to alleviate.
And I know we now get your principal emails, which are very packed with information, but I think the latest one was very big on making sure that kids know the options you're talking about. They know how to get extra help. They know how to get support. You talk about academic labs being open. You talk about getting assistance. Do you think a lot of that maybe some students don't know enough about or haven't known enough about?
I do, and that's one of the reasons I really spent some time thinking about some advice or suggestions to give to parents about helping them understand, and I say this about myself as well as a parent of two students, helping frame the conversation with your child about how they are doing at school, and helping them understand all the different components that go into being a successful student. You've got to talk with your teachers. You've got to keep on top of your attendance. You've got to make sure you're not missing those first couple minutes of class because you are walking too slowly in the hallway. You've got to be willing to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to eat lunch with you guys today. I need to work on reviewing my vocabulary for my quiz. And I think we're at a point where many students are not as willing or able as we'd like them to be to own some of that responsibility themselves. And again, I say that as a parent of students myself, really wanting to teach them, if you don't know how to do this, you can't just say, I don't know how to do it. My teacher didn't teach it. If teachers aren't communicating well or providing supports in the classroom, the most important way for us to know that is to see students come up against roadblocks. But it's important to me as principal with my team and with my teachers that we're able to figure out, what's a real significant roadblock to learning and what's you just not quite having the habits for success. And we're seeing that in our district at the elementary level. The progress report that came home first from elementary school is just about habits for success. Because you have to have those habits first before you can really get to real learning of content. And we also have seen, I think, this year that whether it's because more students have opted up to a higher level course in terms of academic placement because they wanted to push themselves and they knew that they were ready for it, we are seeing some students be anxious about how they're doing. But then when you really dig into the conversation and say, well, have you talked to your teacher? How much time do you spend on homework? Are you looking online at your teacher's Google Classroom site? When some of the answers to those questions are no from the student, it's important for us to really help that student build those habits for success. And that's less about what your grade is or what your GPA is, or than it is whether or not you're building, what's being referred to as grit or resilience. Because if you're a senior and you're hitting a class and you think it's hard, and we really dig into a conversation, and you've got like a 76 or a 78 average, to me that's not a danger zone. That's you working at the level you're working at now and seeing what it yields, and you needing to say, okay, so how do I get that 78 to an 80, or how do I get that 80 to an 84? And those are skills that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life, especially into college and career and what comes next for you. So rather than kind of saying, whoa, I'm panicking, I don't want to do this anymore, we really want parents having conversations with their students about what type of kind of independence and initiative those students need to be having. And we have the study hall built into the schedule. We have the labs open during the day so that students are not off on their own trying to figure this out. They can access teachers and supports during the day to get that help that they need to do well.
Another thing we recently reported was that the AP exams, I think I'm going to get this right, the number of AP exams taken, the number of courses being taken by students are up.
Absolutely.
In the last year. Why is that, do you think, and what do you think that says about what the high school is doing?
Well, I'd like to think that means students know that those are good courses, those are interesting courses, those are courses in which you'll find yourself, highly engaged, but you'll also be pushed, and you'll also be, I keep reminding students and parents, an AP course is not an extra hard high school course. An AP course is a college course presented in high school. And it's not a college course, presented quote-unquote at a high school level, whatever someone may think that means, but it is a course whose syllabus has been certified by the College Board to be aligned with the College Board expectations of what that survey course is. So, the AP language course is a freshman composition course from a college. U.S. History AP is a, level 100 high school, college U.S. history course. And helping students understand what that means, ideally should be making students more interested in wanting to push themselves. And then there's an important conversation to be had about how many of those courses should you be taking, and what kind of supports are you getting, and what kind of work are you doing yourself to make sure that you're going to be successful there. And then have the opportunity to get those college credits by a particular score on that exam.
And are you seeing that the kids are doing well in these courses? I mean, there's more of them taking them, but
we certainly are.
Yeah.
They're doing well in the courses, and they're certainly doing well on the AP exams. Without looking at the report right in front of me right now, our students, average 83 or 84% last year, I think. And you can check that number. Scored A3 or higher, and at most universities, a 3 is where students will start being able to get college credit for the course. Many colleges, of course, only say the 4 or the 5. But again, there are 2 parts to that course. One is the course that you take over the course of the year and really challenge and push yourself at Columbia. And then the other is when you get that score report back in the summer, you certainly have the opportunity then to report that out to your college when you enroll and potentially, kind of reap the benefits there, which is an exciting opportunity for students. And it's our job to kind of continue to open up that opportunity for students and to get them ready to do that while at the same time making sure any other needs students have are also met.
Yeah, another thing we did at the end of August, which we always like to do, is post the list of colleges that our graduates are going to. And I believe we had numbers that they were going to more than 400 or nearly 400 2016 Columbia graduates going to 4-year colleges, and 161 different colleges, which I found interesting that there is, you have your Rutgers and your other nearby colleges, but a lot of colleges on the list, 161 different colleges getting 1 or 2 students, Columbia, Cornell. What do you think that says that we have students who are so diverse in where they want to go? Or is that unusual? I have had kids in other schools.
I would be interested. I don't think it's necessarily as unusual as it may sound, although some of the things I might highlight there are certainly our guidance and counseling team does a fantastic job of making sure students are thinking about all the options that they have open to them. I think the last few years economically in the United States have made parents and students hopefully really have good conversations about the value, literally the dollar value of their investment in a 2 or 4-year college, and what opportunities are out there to get financial aid. I think colleges themselves have had some, real serious conversations about how affordable or not their programs are. Princeton now, as an example, I think if the family reported income is under $100,000 a year, Princeton basically says you will not graduate from Princeton owing any money or with any debt.
Wow.
And they'll, again, check me on that.
No, I can see that.
Rutgers has opened up more opportunity to students from low-income families. So I think kind of those commitments from colleges and universities are opening up larger conversations for everyone. Certainly our Columbia students are well regarded. Our fall our fall college visits when university reps come in to meet with juniors and seniors are well attended, and I stop into lots of them, and I think it's clear that college reps think our students are a pretty impressive lot. I visited with many of the reps who were here at our big college fair last year, and there were some new universities. I think our students are, to their credit and to our benefit, kind of quote unquote putting Columbia on the map at some new places. For example, the University of Chicago had a table at our college fair last year, and I think students are more willing to go a little bit farther from home, look at small schools that are farther away, look at larger Midwestern state universities, I think is developing to be a slightly new trend for some of our students, and really thinking about what it is you're going to experience when you get on that campus and what opportunities you're going to open up for yourself. I also think very intelligently many of our students and families are seeing the value of a 2-year community college associate's degree. And I think that is one of the most powerful conversations we can have, especially for students and families who think that their students might do better overall if they are potentially closer to home and or don't have to spend the money on room and board, and or those are students who already want to or are working already. Combining those kinds of experiences with the beginning of the college is, I think, a really powerful choice for families, and it's one I think we're doing a better job of encouraging, and students and families are doing a better job of seeking out what that might look like for them and their students. And we have a few more students doing things other than going straight to school. We have a student who just left this week to do a year of service with AmeriCorps. We have some students who went straight to work, of course, or to some type of intern, or as Europeans call it, a gap year.
Yes.
I think that's all to say, students are, number one, maybe pushing so hard in high school that they're discovering another year of school is not something they're interested in, which concerns me as a principal. But in some instances, they're also discovering that there are a lot of options out there right now that aren't necessarily straight to a 4-year expensive college degree.
Sure, a year off to make some money for college, and also maybe get a chance to see what the working world is like. Say, wait a minute, I need to go back.
Absolutely.
And get that degree. And I also know that we mentioned the arts and music, and I think on a story we ran, we found there were 8 students attending colleges focused on performing arts, and another 8 attending colleges related to art or fashion, which is really great. And as you mentioned, a lot of 2-year, and of course you go to the 2-year college, and then you switch to the 4-year college. It's the same degree at the end, and a lot less money owed.
It is. It is, and I think students discover that the pool, as it were, for application to college as a freshman versus the opportunities given to transfer students can also be significantly different. And of course, when you apply as a transfer student after that community college degree, you've really kind of proven yourself in terms of personal responsibility and kind of engagement and commitment. And I think that students may be also discovering that there's a then greater opportunity for financial aid from that 4-year institution if you go in as a transfer student to start your junior year.
And again, we're talking to Elizabeth Aaron, principal of Columbia High School. I will not keep you much longer. We'll be quick. But one thing I do want to ask about is what else is different from the last 2 years? What's new in this year's curriculum or events that people might not know about that we weren't seeing in previous years, whether it's events or courses or even just the way the students are sort of, what's sort of the buzz around campus in a positive way that people might not realize?
I'm sure hard to say, right? Because I guess I am in charge of the buzz, but we've got, the addition of study halls, frankly, is a big thing for students. As I said, hopefully that's really kind of relieving some of the pressures that we have seen them feeling.
And you had no study hall in the past, or just
we did, but
it was difficult to get?
It was difficult to get, and there certainly were not as many of them. And of course, that has created some new challenges. How do we staff them, and how do we make sure students have access to computers and things like that if they want to do that work? But I've also encouraged students, frankly, and parents to think of that study hall as maybe a non-technology period, maybe as a slight decompression. Maybe that's when you do make your flashcards for vocabulary, or you do review your class notes, or, I'm really trying to emphasize this year reading for pleasure and keeping a book with you at all times. Studies show that reading fiction does remarkable things like, not only increase your vocabulary, but also increases empathy and understanding. And I think that's a really important thing for us to be doing. One of the things we do when we focus on academics and achievement and performance is we sometimes forget some of that social and emotional learning that our elementary and middle school counterparts are sometimes much better than high school teachers are at finding time for, because as high school teachers we're so pressured to focus on that academic learning, and having our students have a little bit of extra time during the day to decompress a little bit, to check in with that counselor, to do some review work, to get some last-minute quizzing or studying done, or quiz or review done, is, I think, important. So maybe a little bit of the buzz there is that is something that's seen as a student benefit.
And the policy is still with cell phones, students.
Off and away.
Yeah, and I know
Off
they get
and away.
them taken away, and the parent has to come and.
Well, yeah, and
retrieve,
we'd certainly like to avoid that. You know, as
Yeah.
I've said to students or parents when I'm engaging in conversations about that, as a high school principal, I'd like to never have to talk about student
Sure.
cell phones at all. They are really useful for a tremendous number of things,
Right.
Studying, communication, etc. But they can also really be technologically and emotionally and psychologically a tremendous distraction
Yes.
for students. That's where a lot of the drama comes from and resides, and students kind of being able to turn that off and tune it out while they're at school just yields better results for them at school. That's the bottom line.
Are most students following the rules?
They are.
Yeah. 'Cause
They
it seems
are.
like they get.
And it's, as I said last year, it's really nice to be standing at the front door in the morning watching students talk to each other instead of looking down at their screens.
Okay, and then we'll let you go. But one other thing, what do you think is the biggest misconception about Columbia, and at the same point, the biggest positive that maybe a lot of people don't know about the school?
I'd say, given my years in our community and as principal, size. Because it is a big school, whether it's square footage or number of doors or number of students,
Right.
which many people feel is a detriment. You know, quote unquote, you can get lost, you know, students fall through the cracks, et cetera, and so forth. And I don't believe that, not if we're doing a good job. And our size allows us to have, you know, diversity of programs and course offerings that smaller schools simply can't. And, you know, when I'm talking with incoming ninth grade families or prospective ninth graders or students, and they're saying, you know, but Columbia is so big, I just try to kind of gently remind them that, well, it's our two middle schools put together, which is what the logical formula is for a high school that's shared by two towns. So it's, you know, I like to say CHS is MMS plus SOMS plus a few extra who come every year from private school. And it is big. But as one of our student leaders said right before school started and we planned our ninth grade orientation day, there's someone for everyone at Columbia. And I would say there's not only someone for everyone, but there's something. So I think our size gives students the opportunity to really explore, you know, in a safe way, academically and socially, who they are and who they want to be over the 4 years that they're with us.
And what about maybe the biggest hidden gem or secret that people don't know that you say, oh, I didn't realize Columbia did this, or that this was going on, or this good thing?
I'd have to say it's our students and our teachers.
Yeah.
No question, and I think all you have to do to figure that out is talk to them.
And I certainly know, we know at the school board meetings, your student representatives are very vocal and involved.
Absolutely.
Philip Sully, he started last year making his voice felt. I think a lot of kids realize, don't you think when they realize they have a voice at the school board, even if they don't have a vote, that's something a lot of school boards don't do. Does it get the kids to feel like they can do it? Because a lot of them has shown up, whether it's to support the baseball coach or the swim team got honored, the baseball team got honored, they perform, that they have this link to the governing body that maybe a lot of towns don't have?
I think that may absolutely be the case. And in part of the strategic planning process, I think one of the things we've been talking about is, you know, how you engage in your civic and civil community, you know, what it means to participate in democratic processes, what it means to engage in public conversation, you know, kind of what the parameters are for doing that, you know, thoughtfully and with integrity and good judgment and honestly, and with an eye toward making sure that we're serving, you know, the needs of all of our students and parents and families in a diverse community that really values public education. So that's probably also one of the things that I think maybe people miss or don't think about, but that is very important about our school and our school community at large.
And what have they done as relates to the presidential election and how that's been handled? Obviously, it's been discussed in classes.
It's certainly, you know, I think as a former history teacher, I can tell you that it tends to come up the most in social studies classes.
I'm sure.
I was in a class this week, and of course the homework had been to watch the debate.
Yes.
You know, kind of cringeworthy or not, it's something that we want to guide our students in engaging in. We did 2 voter registration drives last year. You know, some of our seniors are voting. The outcome of this election will obviously directly impact the world that we live in and the world that they go into when they graduate high school. So opening up those conversations at school, I think, is really important, and we certainly have seen that the last few weeks.
And do you have a mock election like some schools do, or no?
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
Probably a good thing.
Well, we need to really focus on making sure that teachers and students have, smooth, uninterrupted time for teaching, and whether it's something like wanting an early dismissal for a pep rally or administering the PSATs, we want to make sure that we really use every minute wisely. We could definitely do that. It's not something that we've done previously, so it's not on tap for this year, maybe in the coming years.
Yeah, probably. And you mentioned there's going to be early dismissal Friday for pep rally and a parade.
Yep, we thank Dr. Ramos for letting us
Yes.
leave the building after period 8 on Friday, and students who wish to join us will be marching up to Columbia for a pep rally with the fall sports teams. We're looking forward to it.
And you're also having a homecoming dance.
We have a homecoming dance
I
on
know
Saturday and home athletic events Friday night. I think women's soccer at 7 p.m. at Underhill and football at 1 o'clock on Saturday, including our honoring of senior cheerleaders, senior football players, and senior band members as part of homecoming weekend.
So plenty
so we
to do.
definitely encourage everyone to get out and support them.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time. Again, Elizabeth Aaron, principal of Columbia High School. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to a good year.
Thank you so much. So do we.
Be well.
Bye.